7 minutes past the hour now. Let's say good morning to Liz Mullen. And Liz, what's the latest now on Mr. Harry Wu?
Well, Terry, a startling tape has been released, and the Chinese say it shows human rights captive Harry Wu confessing to falsifying video exposés he produced for the BBC. In the tape, which you're seeing here, Wu admits some editing errors were made in his documentaries about human rights abuses in China. But Wu's wife says those errors were already acknowledged. She says nowhere in the so-called confession does her husband retract the main points of his reports.
He will not confess anything because there's nothing for him to confess. Harry worked very hard to make sure that all the information he made is accurate.
The U.S. State Department says it's also very skeptical about this tape. The White House continues to call for his immediate release.
We're back 26 minutes now past the hour. Living in the Bay Area, we are, of course, in ideal proximity to do business with the Pacific Rim, but the past few months have revealed that it may not be as easy as we would all like it to be. Fortunately, we have the talents and good offices of Mr. Mickey Cantor, who is the U.S. Trade Ambassador. And good morning. Nice to have you with us.
Good morning. Thanks for having me.
It's really good to be here. And, of course, we're joined also by Herb Greenberg from the San Francisco Chronicle. What is it like going through these negotiations? We came very close, did we not, to having an all-out trade war with Japan?
Maybe not a trade war. I think that's a bit of too much hyperbole. We certainly came close to a real confrontation with Japan over something that should have been addressed a long time ago. Frankly, for 35 years, the Japanese have kept their markets closed, have kept prices high, used those profits to export, especially in the U.S. market, in terms of dumping their products on our market at lower prices. It's built their economy, but of course it's hurt U.S. workers and U.S. business. It's time we made it fair. All we're saying is we want the same access to their market that they've had to ours.
Yeah. Do you have a question for Mr. Cantor?
Well, no, I was wondering if this thing, I thought it wasn't totally resolved from the standpoint we started going into the airlines started having problems. The cargo airlines were getting into this, and the film industry. You know, we have the issue now with Kodak and with Fuji. Can you explain what's going on with that aspect of this? You got one part resolved, now we've got the other parts coming.
Well, I think there are two aspects of it. One, of course, American business has never been more competitive and productive, therefore more aggressive, and understands, number two, that those markets are critical to their future and our future. We're 4% of the world's population. 96% live outside our borders. Our future is in breaking into those markets and building U.S. jobs and raising our standard of living. And these companies understand it, and they've come to us, and we've said we will go out there and be their advocate because we need those markets open.
So we've got the auto industry taken care of, but what about the film industry?
Well, not taken care of. Let me come back because people want to overstate the case, and I try not to do that. We've made good progress. We've had 16 agreements with Japan in just 30 months. We've had 151 agreements with the world in just 30 months. This president has been wildly successful in opening markets, but we've got a long way to go. We've got to make sure that it's not one-way trade, that we keep our markets open and others close theirs to our products. That's what we're trying to do. Very simple, but somewhat profound, I think, in terms of where we're going over the next century.
Can we get to, speaking of the auto industry itself and the fact that this hasn't all been resolved, the question of auto parts. One of the things the Japanese contend, if I'm correct, is that if we made better auto parts, I guess if we provided better goods, that they would have been trading with this all along and this wouldn't have developed. How do you answer criticisms that maybe we don't make the quality material we should?
One, the World Economic Forum just last year said for the first time in 10 years we had the most productive and competitive workers in the world. Number two, only with Japan do we have a trade deficit in auto parts. We have a $5 billion surplus with the rest of the world. So the rest of the world believes U.S. auto parts can compete with Japanese or other auto parts quite well. It's only in Japan where they've had this closed system and these sanctuary markets and this entitlement to closing their markets that we've had this problem.
Are you going to have to continue to deal with them piecemeal with the Japanese, or is there ever going to be a nice, smooth, long-range plan? It seems like you have to take care of each problem as it comes up.
We do, and we have really a three-part plan. One, of course, was getting the so-called Euro round finished, the largest trade agreement in history, which we did in December '93. That brings Japan and others into a world trading system with a baseline of rules. Number two, the president reinvigorated something called the Asian Pacific Economic Cooperation Forum. which is the nations, the trading nations, the Asian Pacific and Canada, Mexico, and the United States. We have now begun to build that organization to create free trade in the region by the year 2010 for developed nations. That's critical to us. We can compete if the rules are fair. APEC, World Trade Organization, they make the rules fair. But in the meantime, as we face a Kodak case or autos and auto parts or civil air, meaning getting our routes for Federal Express through Japan, we're going to take those issues on because we're going to stand up for American workers.
Before you leave, one quick note here, the question of Harry Wu, the civil rights activist, human rights activist, who has been detained in China. How does that affect us? First of all, Mr. Wu's fate, maybe you can't even speculate on that, but can you speculate at all on how that affects our trade or upcoming trade with China?
Well, first of all, we've separated trade from human rights, as we should. The fact is we've got to keep completely engaged with China to have some influence, but China should release Harry Wu now. We're working very hard on that. In the same time, we're trying to maintain relations on a trade and economic basis with China so we can have some influence in order to not only have China release Harry Wu, but stop proliferating missiles into Iran and Pakistan.
You're doing a good job.
Thank you. I appreciate that.
Well, we appreciate it too.
This is a key state for us. It's the largest trading state in the nation and be the 7th largest country in the world in trade if it were a separate nation.
Wow, think of that.
I'd just like to know if I could get you to negotiate my contract.